All right, so I am Alexander Hine. I'm part of Team Lobster. My biggest part of the balancing task for this sprint was basically just to start balancing a lot more of the combat and how it kind of plays out so that we can start making sure that it's still strategic while also being within that time window that we were all kind of looking for. So with that, I'll go in and show an explorer here, go to the first build, and start it up. Uh, from this, I'll just go into one of the combat levels here. I'll go into the combat here, and before we kind of go into anything too far, I wanted to at least pull this up. So the first thing that I wanted to do is I just wanted to obviously fix the healing button for all party units. Most of these descriptions are going to be very straightforward because I knew exactly what needed to be fixed. One of those things was the healing button for the party units. For some reason, there was an issue in the game where a player could evidently not actually perish when their health hit zero when you hit the heal button. Um, so going on forward with this as a player, I want to use the heal button so I can heal the characters up when their health is low, without also them without them not being able to die. So completion criteria is just basically locating where that issue is in the code in the heal, and then also creating a check so that they can perish when their health is at zero or below. So you'll be able to see a lot of this as the game kind of progresses, continues. Um, so what I'll go ahead and do is just do simple attacks here until such a time where I can actually utilize the heal function. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and heal over on Unit 1, which is the original one. As you can see down here, the health is less than 80, so we're just going to go ahead and heal them up. That way it is displayed. So once we get to a section of time, you see right there, we have a couple. So yeah, now we have a window here where I can go back and kind of showcase what I was looking at next. And I'll just go ahead into the next part, which was balance health and damage for all units. So basically, what I did is I also had the data. And when I say balance health and damage, this is just originally what it was called. It was more just going to be focused on the balancing of the entirety of the units. But as a player, I want to have a balanced combat so that no one character is too powerful or too much. So adjust values for base damage calculation, decrease health for all units. This, however, ended up getting amended. Just because I don't want it to be a one-hit wonder game. I don't want health to be too large and take a very long time. And then I just wanted to also balance the health and damage multipliers. So going back also going back to also fixing the healing button for the party units did log around 4 hours of work to make sure that that is correct and done. And you'll be able to see that as we kind of continue here with one of the characters being able to die. And that kind of goes for any of the characters as well. As long as the heal button was pushed before the fix, none of the characters were able to die. So if any character is able to die, that means that it was fixed. Next, I'll just showcase the data that I was doing here. So I have the 10 different play testers here. And basically what I did is I just had them rate on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being poor, and then or just completely unbalanced, and then 5 being 100% balanced, no need to really change anything. So when I came up there and I asked what was the damage calculation? How did that feel? Did that feel like it was a solid amount on a scale of 1 to 5? Same thing with how the health felt, how the shield amount felt, so the number that the shield of shielding opportunities you have, the heal amount in the actual amount given back to the player, not the amount of times that you can utilize it, as that will be changed in the future, as well as how did the special attack damage feel comparatively. And then I displayed what their time to complete a single battle was. And then finally, I added an area for notes, in which a lot of the players had a very, very similar things to say. So, um, going into the averages down below here, as you can see, the averages for the damage calculation, which was actually quite high. A lot of the players did feel that the damage was probably good enough, especially when telling them about a time requirement and the other parts of the game that we have. They did believe that the damage amount was actually good. The next thing was having the average for the health amount. So they all believe that, I mean, nothing should be one hit unless it's the right character at the right time that's not shielded. And that kind of goes for a lot of the characters that you'll see within the game, or one specific character, I should say, that is very, very low in health and damage, but has a higher level of shield, which then allows it to be shielded up a little bit more. And besides, I mean, most players, especially when it's really, really weak DPS, they're not going to use it overly too much. They're going to use it as an opportunity to heal once again. But going to the shield amount. So going into the shield amount, a lot of the players started to feel as though that it was not necessary for them to have too many shields. And now they're specifically talking about the enemies in this case. So they believe that the enemies were having too much shield. And as you could already see in the start of the game, most of them are not utilizing their shield initially. They're mainly going and attacking. And that's partially because of some other things that I fixed in the game, but most of the reason is because I reduced that number of overall shields, which kind of goes back to this um, balancing health and damage for all units. It should be amended to say balancing the shield for all units. So if I can, I will go ahead and do that right here. Balance shield and balance shield for all units. So we'll go down here. With that, we're going to adjust values for base shield. We're not going to worry about decreasing health for all the units. That was not necessary at all. And then balance total amount of shield. So we'll go ahead and save that, and then also showcasing that this also took around 4 hours, just, obviously with all the play testing and the iterations that I continued to do, making sure that it felt about right. And as you can see now, when we go in here, the characters themselves didn't necessarily need them. I noticed that a lot of the characters or the players in the playtest did not utilize the shield as much. It was really more for any specific character that got way, way too low, as you can see on the player here. So what we're going to showcase here is just another basic attack. And from there, we'll see the damage calculation, everything like that. And then I'll kind of go back into what we were looking at before to kind of keep this going in a way, because combat is going to be completely fluid. It's going to be hard to showcase one thing and then exit out of the game and then showcase that again and again and again. So reducing overall time spent in combat. This kind of goes hand in hand with a lot of different things. So as a player, I want to spend a shorter time in combat so that I can, play the base game for more time. Just because of how the quests go, as well as also how finding certain things in the game, it does definitely make it a little bit more challenging to be stuck in combat for a long time. So with that, it would be decrease the time it takes for players to perform attacks. In which, when we look at this, going back into this attack, and we'll go ahead and attack one of these enemies, the movement is increased by a small margin. So it is a little bit faster, and as you can kind of see here, the movement is happening, and it's usually going to be a little bit faster, as well as whatever is going on from the time it takes to click it to the time it takes to actually perform the attack. Now, going back into here, I also spent about 4 hours on this, just reducing the time, kind of playing around with what it would take to to basically, one, start a turn, and then also the movement in there, so that it's a little bit more fluid, and also still a little bit faster. So I also reduce the time it takes to start up a unit's turn, so the next time that it comes over into another unit's turn, it's not going to be taking too long for the attack to actually happen, and that more so goes for the enemies, as they don't really pick like the player does. So you can kind of see that it kind of just jumps over to the next one. It's still doing the rotating. It's all that, but it's reducing it by a small margin, so that the player can still get a good visual of what the character's health is at for that time before they actually make a move into fully attacking, in which the player will not be able to see what the health bar is at for that specific character. So now, as you kind of saw earlier before, but I wanted to showcase this again, and we'll go ahead and do that once more. But we are adding a particle effect to the healing command. Now, I spent around 4 hours on this, specifically because I wanted to make sure that this was going to be correct and feel good, look good with everything that's going on. I obviously didn't want it to stray too far away from the realism aspect. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that it was still going to be somewhat, plausible, and then but also very, very noticeable for the players to understand. So as a player, I want to see when the player heals up so that it's more pronounced and localized, that I know what player is being healed. So for that, it was the completion criteria was to create a new particle effect that is red. I did end up changing it to green, so I'll go ahead and showcase that in a second. We're going to have the target heal command pan over with the camera. Now, this is the only thing that was not able to work correctly. And then finally, we're going to play the particle effect on the target, whatever target that may be. So we'll go ahead into the game, and with this, I have already used heal with this character, so there is a heal cooldown. What I'll do then is go to attack the enemy one, and then the next character I will be able to heal with. As we kind of keep going, you see it's very advantageous at this point to probably heal the unit player, which you can see it down in the corner here, and as the kind of moves over, we see the particle effect play around the character and then dissipates after they are healed up. So once again, I will showcase that on the player once again. And there you see the material go around. And such is that. So there is a heal cooldown, and it's, I believe, for 5 turns. That's just to reduce the amount of time that that the healing uh, that the enemy would take to basically they would continue to heal themselves up essentially. So I'll go back into the next one. So now a particle effect to the shielding command. So as a player, I want to see when a player shields up so that I know which command to use against them. So ideally that would be the special attack because it would do more damage, even though the shield is taking 50% of that incoming damage. It is so whenever that character that is shielded gets hit again, that damage is taken, like, is halved. Is reduced by 50%. So if the incoming damage is 10, it would be 5. If the incoming damage is 100, it would be 50. Not overly hard to understand there, but all I would do is basically create a new particle effect, make sure that's going to be playing on the specific target. So in that case, it would be the current unit that is being utilized, and then what they will do is they'll add a particle effect to the unit base so that it's applied each time the unit chooses the shield command. This was, again, logged for another 4 hours. I wanted to obviously make sure the particle effect worked, and then also was going to hang around on the player until they got hit the next time they took damage. So what I will do is I will showcase that now as we will shield up with the player, and now you see there's a particle effect going around. Now Unit 2 is very, very low, and now you can see where that part is, where they actually do dissipate and die. Again, I will go ahead and shield here just so that we can maximize our opportunity to see when these particle effects fall away. So you see now the damage was half because this character does 10 damage. And now you don't see the particle effect going around that character anymore, as it will dissipate after the character is hit. Next, we'll go into the making the enemies smarter in combat. Now, this is obviously one of the most important parts about this. Took me around 4 hours, along with some guidance to make sure that as a player, I want to make the AI smarter so the combat can feel more realistic. As we've gone through this, the majority of things that are happening are the enemies are normally going to be choosing to attack, and that's basically where it comes in that they're going to be smarter. So I use functions that were already created to make checks on the enemy unit's statistics, and then make the AI choose the right command at the right time based on the checks. So everything goes from the first idea is to heal, and the second is to perform a special attack or a regular attack with a random float. And then the third one would be to shield, which takes away a lot of that problematic section of not being able to, or of seeing a lot of the enemies shielding constantly, and then also the data that I had in the play tests where they would reduce the amount of time that they do shield anyway. And then finally, after that, it would go to just regular attacking again. So if they couldn't do all of those first 3 things, then they're just going to regular attack. Simple as that. So I will try to now showcase with a special attack on to enemy 3. And you can see there was also a change there, but because it was down lower, it ended up healing. that because the health was so low at that time that one of the other characters had chosen to heal that character because it was below 30%. So that's kind of where we start to see making enemies a little bit smarter in combat as they kind of choose to do those things. Um, so now adding a limit to amount of heal items that the player has, this became important mainly due to the fact that there was going to be an amount of healing items. However, it ended up being a situation where I did a cooldown timer instead. So instead of adding some sort of limit, there was no need to do any of this. However, it still applies to the same kind of sentiment that what I did was I created a system in which that it would limit the amount of times that they would heal because otherwise they would heal constantly. Now, there's a couple checks that were obviously made. One of them I had already described in making them smarter. But again, 4 hours were logged on this. Didn't have to create a base item. Didn't have to cast it from an inventory system either, but basically I made it equal in the amount of heal items that the player would have with the CPU in the sense that whenever that one particular character heals, it goes into a cooldown timer. That cooldown timer takes 5 turns, so that would really emphasize the need of the heal and also reduce a lot of time in combat overall because of the fact that um, the player or the enemy would not be able to just heal constantly forever and ever and ever and ever with every character. Now it's still prominent that and I would say definitely makes sense in the sense that these characters when they get below 30% health that the other characters will forego their ability to attack to end up healing. And that's what we just saw in the game just now, which basically again comes back to the idea of them being smarter, but then also limiting the amount of times that other characters will be able to heal because we'll only be able to see that probably one or maybe two more times depending upon how much or how far we can get through this combat before the before a win condition or a lose condition is met. Uh, so we'll go. I apologize. My mouse is just not wanting to move right now. Of course, it is just really struggling. Gosh. I apologize for that. I had to make sure that also my computer was. So now we'll go back into the next part of this, which is going to be the sound effect. And as you kind of already heard, this sound effect was something that that only took me about a couple hours. Just wanted to make sure that I found the right one. But as a player, when I hear or as a player, I want to hear when a player shields up so that I know that they are shielded and kind of am able to remember that part of it. Is also I want to integrate well, for the completion criteria, I want to create a new audio file and integrate that sound into the shield when the shield command is called. So when we go back into the game here, as you already kind of seen, I don't want to shield again, but I will do it anyway. It won't change the amount that's there, but as you can see, you kind of heard that shield pop up once again. Kind of hear that, the sword against metal. So now we'll go back into here and a sound effect for the healing command. Now, as again, this isn't something else that took me a couple hours just because I wanted to make sure I found the right sound for it. And then for this, I would just basically create a new audio file for healing, integrate the new sound when the unit uses the healing command, and then as a player, I want to hear when the player heals up so that I know that they've healed properly. And you can kind of, obviously, I'm not able to do it right now because of the cooldown timer. So we'll go ahead and try to make sure that one of them can be healed themselves. As you can hear, that kind of noise comes up, and then the particle effect plays as well. So we'll close out of that one. And then finally, when we get down to the bottom here, the sound effect for the unit dying. So I also in this hour that I did this, I found a couple other sound effects that go for both the regular attack and then also the special attack, in the sense that you'll be able to hear when there's a difference. Especially when we get to animations, you'll be able to see a difference as well. But this was rather simple to implement whenever the character ragdolls also play the sound. But creating a new audio file with the death sound and integrate that new audio file into the death condition. And as a player, I want to hear when the unit dies so that I know when the unit is fully dead. Again, this one took around an hour to complete, and hopefully we can get ourselves into a situation where they can be killed. Or either we're going to see it from the unit player. In just a quick second, I'm sure. How unfortunate that... I don't know why that popped up. But we'll go ahead and just attack until we get one of those lose conditions. And a lot of this would be different if... and there you can kind of hear that sound as it kind of came up there. And there, once again. So now we have the lose condition, and we'll go ahead and play this again. I don't believe that I would need to showcase anything else. I just want to make sure that I've gone through everything that I possibly can to showcase for this assignment. So I'll go to an instance as this, and we can showcase this as well, where I've spent a good amount of time in this as well. And then going back to the board, and then just, of course, wanting to showcase this data again. Not going to take too much time to go through all of what the notes say, but essentially this is the main issue, was how the shield amount felt as well as how the healing amount felt. But it was different in the sense that if the game is being played correctly, healing. Um, well, I shouldn't say correctly, but if they're playing it in the way that I would normally suspect, in which they would utilize the double attack power in the special attack, that the game wouldn't be going as long as what it just did by showcasing each and every single thing that we had worked on. So once again, I'll give you one last look at what was going on in here, and with that, I think this part of my video would be done. There was no cut content. Um, each JIRA task was shown, and it was shown that everything was working in the way that I specifically described. Um, so, other than that, I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Hello, my name is Andrew Rockwell, and this is my overview for Sprint 1. Forgive my voice, I'm a little under the weather and getting ready for a wedding, so I apologize if my voice sounds a little hoarse. So carrying on, here is the sprint in Perforce. Here's my work from Thursday until today. 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, every day since the 31st, and then I did work for that as well. So carrying on, I have downloaded the build already from the Perforce, and I will start going over that now. So the first thing I did is the main menu. As the developer, I need to fix up the main menu for the sake of cleaning up usability and navigation. I thought this would take me 3 hours. It only ended up taking me 1 hour 30 minutes due to the menu can be opened in game without exiting the game. Taking a bit harder to implement than originally anticipated. Um, volume slides do not currently work. My teammate is going to handle that. The credits have been updated and there are more levels in the level selector. Here. So I will show this now. Um, so there are two tutorial widgets like this, the one for the ship combat and the one for the Rurikol tutorial. I will show off the Rurikol one, as to go through the combat would lock me into having to do the entire combat, and that would take a very long time to get through. So as a player, I want to know where I am, what I'm doing, so I can make informed decisions about how I'm playing and what my objectives are. Completion criteria. Widget opens upon closing the story synopsis for Rurikol, and the widget explains exploration mechanics. Thought it would take me 15 minutes, took me 17 minutes. Where is... There are multiple of these intro/tutorials for ship combat. So this is the one that goes over the basics of the story, and then the widget for the combat tutorial, much like there is for the start of the Rurikol level. It took me 25 minutes out of 25 minutes, as expected. So I will show you. I'll skip to Rurikol, and here would be the first one, giving the information on the story, and then here's the second one, going over the game mechanics and the rest of the information. I click around, and I can't. So, get out of that. So there's one of those for all the transitions from combat to Ambrica and everything else. The ending slides I'll save for at the end, because I'd have to edit that and get to the end of the game to show that off. So hack silver as an item. This ended up taking me an hour 25 minutes to get. User story. As a user, I want to add currency to my inventory so I can exchange it for in-game goods and services. Completion criteria. Hack silver is added to the inventory upon completion of quests or looting. So I'll show off the looting now. There's the hack silver, and it's displayed up here, which are other tasks that I will need to show off. So went back in and added a display for hack silver based on the feedback from the lecture. That's what ended up taking the most time on this when I went back in and added in that hack silver display counter because it was having difficulty hooking up to the inventory system. But that now works. So again, here's that widget up there in the corner. Update quest rewards to get actual hack silver. That was an old one, pretty self-explanatory. So when I brought that over, it went with it. Create the inventory widget. User story. As a user, I need to be able to open a widget that displays my current inventory so that I can see what I have for quests. Completion criteria. There is an inventory widget. The player is able to open the widget, and the widget displays the player's inventory. This took me 1 hour and 25 minutes out of an expected 2 hours. So by clicking on the inventory page, there is the hack silver. I'll close it. I'll go pick up something else. There's a fish. And now it displays the fish, so it shows the player's inventory. So that's it for the create inventory widget. Add shopkeepers. So I will grab some more loot so I can go to a shopkeeper. Looking at the task, user story. As a player, I want to be able to buy items from merchants so I can use them later on for quests and combat. The player can talk to merchants, can buy items if they have enough hack silver. So, there's 11 hack silver. Talk to the guy. I'd like to buy a hide. Thank you. The player now has 1 hide. If you look, hack silver is less, and there is now a hide in the inventory. This took 1 hour 25 minutes out of the original 1 hour plan. I've made merchants for all of these. You can buy from all of them. Close inventory. I'll go to the tool merchant. Show. There's some hack silver I bought. Longer. Oh, I can't because I don't have 5 hack silver. So you cannot buy items if you're lacking in hack silver. Okay, next one. Integrate inventory with quests. So for that, we'll need to complete a quest, which I'm sure will involve other tasks. So, user story. As a developer, I want the rudimentary inventory system for quest objects to integrate well with the proper inventory system. Completion criteria. Items made for quests appear in the inventory. Items in the inventory count for quests. The system does not break how things are already set up. I thought this would take me 4 hours. It only took me 1 hour and 50 minutes. So we'll go over here, collect these preemptively, ask him to make a weapon. Oh, I'll use this to show off the quest tracker. Quest tracker. Widget displays tracked user story. As a player, I want to be able to have a small tracker in the corner of the screen with my objectives so I do not have to repeatedly open the quest log. Completion criteria. Widget displays tracked quest. Widget properly updates quest information. I thought it would take me 2 hours. It ended up taking me 2 hours and 59 minutes. So if I hit track up in the corner, it will now display the widget and it will update with quest information. So I gotta go find another hammer. And there's a hammer, and as you see in the top left, the blacksmith tools have or are now working. And there's the blacksmith tools. And then over here, grab another iron ingot. I sure am. Thank you. I finished the quest, and then it will show I got my hack silver and that I got a sword. And so that means in the inventory, the player now has a sword, showing that if I go back up, the inventory is now integrated with quests. The items made for quests appear in the inventory. Items in the inventory actually count for quests as seen, and the system does not break anything. Fix the item display. This was a bug that I thought would take 2 hours, and ended up taking 3 hours and 13 minutes with help from Professor Jude. For the completion criteria, the item display properly displayed beforehand, they would all show up repeatedly on the side over and over and over and over, all overlapping each other, rather than appearing one at a time. But now, if I go and pick up 2 items at once, as I'll go over here and do, it displays the fish, goes away, waits a moment, and then a moment later, it will say that you picked up another item. This took a very, very long time to fix. With help from Professor Jude, it was incredibly difficult. We hadn't anticipated this difficulty, but it was working in the end. I'm going to briefly check the rubric to see what else okay, just gotta do this for every task. Added the ability to save the inventory. I will showcase this off later when I go through the other tabs. Went over the transitions. So originally for the Rurikal combat transition, there was an issue here where it would not take the player to the Rurikal combat. That is now fixed. I will demonstrate that later. Created transition info for the combat ship to Rurikal. Already went over the transition infos, and I demonstrated how that works. Just it does that every time you enter a new level. I will demonstrate the Ilan Isle stealth momentarily. The Tanner's quest originally would not end up picking up hides and making that work. I thought it would take me 25 minutes. It ended up taking me 1 hour and 43 minutes. The completion criteria was didn't quite understand how we were supposed to do it, but now I see it's just the summary line. Summary line: the collectible hides for the Tanner's quest are not counting towards quest progress. Expected result: the collected hides should count towards the total number needed for the quest. Actual result: the hides are not being counted for the quest. Steps to replicate: collect the hide before starting the Tanner's quest, then start the quest. This will not count the hide the player has already collected. This has been fixed by myself and with help from Professor Jude. So if you look, my inventory, I already have one of the hides. So if I go over here, pick up another hide, go on talk, ask to make some equipment, step, quest, Tanner's quest, it is now showing that I have properly collected those 5 hides. Remove dialogue indicators from inventory. So when the player summary, when the player completes a quest objective to talk to an NPC, it is added to the inventory. This is visible to players when it should not be. Expected result: the dialogue check should not be visible to the player. Actual result: the dialogue check is visible when opening inventory. Steps to replicate: in Rurikal Village, talk to the blacksmith about the Vikings. Open the inventory when the conversation is finished. Go to the blacksmith, ask about the town, and there's that. It is fixed. It does display. I'll use another example of Father Merrin. So by going to Father Merrin, because we have the quest objective to talk to Father Merrin. Go and do that. So you see right there, it counts as adding an item to the inventory, because technically it works via an inventory check, but it is not in here, showing that it is now hidden from the player. This was just an example with the blacksmith. That one didn't toggle due to a new bug that has just been discovered in the recording of this, but I do not have time to fix during this current sprint. Thought this would take me 2 hours to fix, it only took me 30 minutes. Moving on to the next area. Okay, the Llewellyn Flighting Lines. Summary. Accepting Llewellyn's flighting challenge doesn't work unless you ask what flighting is. Expected result. Accepting the quest starts the flighting right away. Actual result, it doesn't do anything. Steps to replicate, talk to Llewellyn, ask about what smells, and accept the flighting request. So, to show that works here, go here, talk to him, and say, let's do this, and now it will work. So that was supposed to take me 10 minutes, it only took me 2 minutes to figure out. The ending slides I'll show off at the end. The Father Illan dialogue spawn, I already accidentally showed this off. Summary line, Father Merrin's dialogue for the quest does not spawn inside the church. Expected result, it should spawn on the player's location. Actual result, it spawns in Merrin's previous location outside the church, which was outside the main church door where the player clicks to enter. Steps to replicate, speak to Father Merrin until he tells you about Gunhild, then go outside the church to collect the talk to. Took me 3 minutes to fix this. It now works as demonstrated beforehand. Transition, intro tutorial, quest tracker, showed that off. Fixed up the UI toggles. So, as a developer, I want the player to be able to close the menu widgets by clicking the menu for basic UI design as recommended by Professor Jude. Pressing a UI button for the second time closes the widget for the following. Inventory quest log map. I thought it would take me an hour, it took me 48 minutes to get it working for all of them. Click the inventory, disappears. Opens again. Quests, same thing. Map. And it works for the map too. Next one. Illan Island Interact prompts. I will show this off shortly. Make a name widget. As a player, I want to be able to see character names better so I have an easier time navigating quests. Completion criteria. Create a widget for the NPCs. Widget updates with NPC names. Widget is visible from any angle. This was expected to take me 20 minutes. It ended up taking me 42 minutes to get correct. As you can see here, the name shows, no matter what angle I'm at, it will show the character name. The next task is to create an interact widget, which functions very similar, except it is to show press F to interact. I completed this in about 10 minutes, but it didn't look good, so I ended up incorporating it into the Tanner's widget as well, after realizing I was able to combine both of them into one. So that is that task completed. Last one, Ruhr Call tutorial widget, already went over this and explained it. So now to go back and go through things that I said I would go back to and explain. So the ability to save the inventory. As you saw, I have my store. Where is this? I need to get more hides. Okay. Let's get more hides. I already grabbed that one. Over here. More rats. So I know where I'm missing. Okay. So I will go back over here, like the last hide, and over here. So now, that quest doesn't give you any hack silver, but looking at the inventory, we now have a Gambeson. So I will go over here. We will now see that the inventory will partially save. So I'm going to end up doing 2 different variations, as there are 2 different ways the quest can progress, both of which have an issue that needs to be shown off. The first one I will be doing is going and showing the dialogue check for the Ilan Isle diplomatic path, and then I will go over the Ilan Isle transition bug. So I will go to Edmund, and we'll tell him let us go, and we will try the diplomatic route. So go to him, talk. So going over to the fix the Rurikal combat transition. As a developer, I do not want the player to teleport to the Rurikal attack level, as there is no way to start the combat from there. Completion criteria. Siding with the Vikings takes the player to the Rurikal combat level rather than to the base Rurikal attack level where Gunhild is with the player. This bug has ended up becoming obsolete anyways, as we have it now go straight to the combat level anyways, because of a choice to cut the stealth level that would be in the regular Rurikal attack. So this has become obsolete, but it was still done and then changed due to team considerations for time. So I will now show the combat and how the inventory carries over. So as you can see here, damage is increased due to your new weapon. Health is increased by armor. So we can see our player over there. It's rotating. The player now has a sword in hand, and as it rotates, they have a shield as well to show that they got the improved weapon and the armor. The shield is just a place. Excuse me. Is a placeholder, but it is there to show the armor that the player has. I'm going to pause the recording now, as there's no way to get back to the main menu from here, and I'm going to continue on with the Ilan Isle stealth section. So continuing on, here we have the Ilan Isle stealth transition to Ambrica. User story. As the developer, I do not want the player to be able to teleport straight to Ambrica from Ilan Isle when doing the stealth route. Completion criteria. The player cannot teleport straight to Ambrica from Ilan Isle via the collision box. Summary line. When the player walked back into the collision box by the boat at the start of the Ilan Isle stealth level, they go straight to Ambrica. Expected result. The player should only teleport to Ambrica after killing Gunnar. Actual result, the player teleports to Ambrica at any point, even if Gunnar is not killed. Steps to replicate, go to the Ambrica stealth level, walk away from spawn, then return towards the boat. So, oh, and this one took, I thought it would take 20 minutes, took 15 minutes. So, by closing this, here is that one of the level transitions. Go over here, but if I walk back, thus the player has not killed Gunnar as a way of... So, and we'll get back over here to the next one. I don't remember where that bug is. Fix the Ilan Isle interact prompts. Summary line. The interaction prompts for the Ilan Isle tent and ship do not have the correct prompts or prompts that line up. The bug showed that the would say the same thing as to enter the Rurikal Church, and they would be off-centered, off to the side, rather than hovering over the actual object itself. Expected result. The prompt should display right-click to interact over the object, not to the side. Actual result. The prompts have the wrong text and the wrong location. Steps to replicate. On Ilan Isle, go to Gunnar's tent or the ship and look for them. Let's make our way over here. Doesn't end up coming back to bite me while I just try and go over it. Okay, there's the right click to interact. And over here, right click to interact. And now work. Please don't. Please don't. Oh. Oh, am I gonna get stuck in now? Well, this is bad. This was not me though, so I had no way of knowing or fixing this. Main menu, level select. Alien Isle. Go back. We will now try and do this again. Here. We will right click the tent. Gunnar is now dead. Go over to here. And now we have transitioned to the Ambrica map, which means we have fulfilled the completion criteria for the Ilan Isle stealth transition to Ambrica. Completion criteria: the player cannot teleport straight to Ambrica as Gunnar has now been killed. And we also saw the Ilan Isle drag prompts were fixed because they are now located in the correct location. What else? What else did I miss? Oh, yes, the ending slides. So, here's this. Did he move? And he moved Rolo. Okay. So I'm going to pause the video again and cut to the end of combat for Ambrica to show off the ending slides. So, carrying on from where we were, the ending slides. As a player, I want to know what happens after the game ends, and to be informed that the game is over so I know when it has been completed. Create the widget. I've done that. Write out the info for the widget that explains the epilogue. Disable player movement when the widget appears on screen. Widget occurs after beating the Ambrica fight. The game returns to the main menu after finishing. There is a version for the Saxon and Viking ending. Getting through the combat takes a bit, so I'm going to show off the default Saxon ending. There is the Viking one. I have tested it. It works. I thought it would take me 1 hour 20 minutes. It took me 1 hour 40 minutes because I had to get it to properly display after the combat widgets had finished because it did not function like a regular widget would on screen because otherwise it would begin to overlap with the rest of the combat stuff that Alex worked on. So I had to work with Alex to make sure that this would work and to ensure that there was not too much overlap. Cutting back in, gonna wrap up the combat. I resumed here because I didn't want to mentally get onwards. And okay, so he's dead because I didn't want that to happen. So then that goes on. Hack Silver, rewards from battle, yay. And then here's the epilogue. Obviously, we want to get rid of that UI, but it'll have to happen afterwards. It gives the story's epilogue, da 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 da. Hit thanks for playing. There's the victory message, yay, you won. And then it will bring you back to the main menu as said in the completion criteria. I'm now going to check theory this. See. Oh, yes. One thing that was not able to get working, but did take quite a hefty chunk of time that I worked with Professor Jude on is, adding the audio to the dialogue. I thought it would take me 4 hours, it took me 2 hours 17 minutes, but due to crashes, this unfortunately had to be cut. I spent a lot of time trying to get this working with Professor Jude, troubleshooting, trying to see how things would do, but unfortunately this one did not properly work. I want to keep trying this a bit more, so I won't say it's completely cancelled, but it's on hold for now due to time constraints. I'll pause the video while I read through these. After checking, that is the final recording I have for the Sprint 1 review. Thank you for watching. My name is Andrew Rockwall. Here's the Perforce again. Just for the heck of it, I'll close it. And I will go open this video recording. Build for capstone. I mean, I've already exported it. It's the same. It's the same one as for build. Show and explorer, first build. Same everything, same stuff. The last build was made on 6:56. It's taking me a bit to get this recording finally working, but here we are with the conclusion of the video. Thank you very much and have a good evening. Hello again. I forgot a task, so I have just opened up the build again, and I will show it off. So the task that I forgot, and I moved it over to here, is the additional level improvements. Completion criteria: fix up any open areas in the Rurikal village, add additional details for the intro ship combat, add SFX to combat scenes, and I'll show that off. So we have completion criteria number 5. We have the chests now scattered around the whole area. There's music for sound effect. There are now multiple blockers that prevent the player from going into areas with no combat, such as these little pallets here, fences, like barricades and other barrels and stuff that prevent the player from going down that path. These are already here. Now a fence there prevents the player from going that way. What else? Well, that has closed off the unexplorable areas with no content in Rurikal Basic. Going to the menu, start game. I added the here's the comment tutorial. I added the rain and edited the sky so it would be less bright, and added the music for the. Apparently changes the music, but there is still music here for the combat as well. So that finishes the level time. That would take me 2 hours. It took me 1 hour, 42 minutes to do. And that is where I will end this. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good morning, I'm Daniel Mullaney from Team Lobster, and today I will be going over my personal taskings in Jira and implementation into our game for review of Sprint 1. First, let's get the build unzipped. Build number 1470242, also known as 15. The file is exactly 1 gigabyte. Just get through the fight sequence here real quick. Okay, so first, since we're already in Rurikal, I'm going to show you the first tasking I did was add landscape to Rurikal map. As a player, I want a path to be more defined by adding terrain and walkways. Completion criteria: create space, landscape, terrain, create elevation and resize, paint pathways, walkways, surrounding areas, and then fix nav mesh to work with AI. So this ended up taking me a little bit longer than 4 hours because of issues with copy and paste, since we have each map has the combat map and the stealth map, and duplicating the landscape for each individual map took quite a bit of work. Okay. So I left the base ground on the block mesh, and then once I had the landscape lined up with it, I deleted the block mesh underneath, so everything lined up perfectly, and kept it kind of flat. So each individual house here that we have, I made a little cobblestone pathway to kind of give the player a sense of realistic village, so that a player could essentially follow the path to each one of the quests, or the vicinity of quest givers. And the larger the path takes you outside of town, so on and so forth. So there could be like something, oh, look, I missed this. Um, I try to keep it very minimalistic, so as to not interfere. So instead of rescaling each individual map's elevations, I picked areas typically that weren't near the assets to modify their heights and values. So you see here, there's a slight hill, and there's a little bit of elevation changes in here, and then another one over here. So along the entire wall, have it raised up to give it a more idealistic look. And then later we're going to add the trees and the foliage and bushes and stuff, so that I can implement the stealth into the bushes. And then limit the player from being able to go outside of the map here. And then just pretty much drop down into the water here. And then there's a kill box. So if you do fall into the water, you die. I took quite a bit of time lining everything up perfectly, but I got it. Okay. Next is landscape for Inland Isles map. This player want my path to be more defined by adding terrain and walkways. Again, same as Rurikal. Create base landscape terrain, create elevation and resize, paint paths, walkways, surrounding area, fix nav mesh to work with AI, edit areas involving stealth to avoid obstructions for AI. So this is one of the big things that I noticed, that when I did change it the first time, that the AI was limited in their areas, so I had to avoid paths and areas of the nav mesh that pretty much, like a rock or a tree, they couldn't get to a specific zone. So I edited it all out to where the nav mesh is more versatile for the AI to reach you. And this was a 4-hour log. Also, on top of this, I have in the same couple maps here. As a player, I want to be able to walk around with my character without my character being obstructed by map and click functionality. Completion criteria: open Ilan Isles map and reposition obstacles obstructing movement from players start to task. Open Roll map and reposition obstacles obstructing movement from player start to tasks. And then Ruins map obstructions, player start to task, and then test. So this took a solid 4 hours as well. There was a lot of trial and error with testing the default camera angle so that if the player didn't want to rotate it, they don't necessarily have to. So these are both implemented in here. So here, you can't really see it from this angle, but I made a small little slit where the boat could come in. And this is where you start the stealth mission in the Ilan Isles map. And then I blocked it off because there's an issue here where the mesh for the rocks actually lets the player push up and then pops out of the other side. So I blocked it off so the player starts here, sees the boat, and they're like, okay, this must be me sneaking in here. And I raised all the terrain on the sides. So as far as obstructing views, I moved the trees around. Since the map is a click based, so if you have an object like a tree here and you go to click on the map, it will click on the tree as opposed to the map. So I just kind of move things around so that you can work through that. There's a mission here as well. So I also fixed this to where you don't get stuck in the boat. You don't necessarily have to go in the boat, but before we had it to where you had to go to the nose of the boat. Wait for this guy to go away real quick. I got myself stuck on the rocks. Wasn't supposed to do that. What the hell? Okay, so there is a mesh to block players from going off into the water, and I was able to get stuck behind it. So I've noted this. So I made it to where these paths look a little bit more streamlined with the AI. So the AI itself will follow these paths here. And they can detect me fairly easy. But I've blocked out this whole island area with the landscape line with the rocks and then the trees. Still trying to work out a way to get the player to go through the trees without the click movement interfering with the movability, especially when AI start to chase you. So the AI currently is set to do damage on you. Um, I've since changed this, but we have to redo it in the build that or in the next build. When the AI captures you, it goes into the combat menu, and as opposed to what it's doing right now. Okay, next we have showed you the Rurikal map, Inland Isles maps, fixed path of obstruction, reposition quest giver, Ambrica ruins. So this one is fairly quick. So in Ambrica ruins, the quest giver was right here, but he pushes you straight into combat. So what I did is I looked for a better spot to place him in. So you follow the path here. And this is another form of me removing the obstructions, because before the bridge is so wide that when you would click through it, it would glitch out. You would have to rotate the camera to kind of click the path, and then rotate it again to click the other side. So to avoid that, I just kind of added like more destruction to the area, and then created a path up here for the AI. So if you come down here, you'll see that this is the quest giver to start the combat. Made more sense to push him back here, so that if you do correctly implement the stealth and get past these mobs, you're able to essentially just fight the boss and not the mobs themselves. I fixed all this nav mesh so that the AI could continue to follow me. And then for the AI is extremely difficult in this too. So going back here, I fenced this in so you kind of give the player like, okay, this is where I started out at. And then just follow the path. Oh, what's this? A little sidewood path. Let's check this out. So this would be like the pretty much like this is the golden path, and then this would be kind of like a curiosity thing to get you into the stealth path. So once you do go up the stealth path, the idea is you pretty much look for the AI and their pathing their areas here. And then the stealth path is going to be right here through the ruins. And then boom, assassinate. Get to a little safe spot here real quick. Pause the game real quick here. Covered obstructions, map, Villain Isles, reposition quest giver, delete unnecessary files in the starter content folder. So I noticed that one of the reasons we were going over a gigabyte was because of a lot of the starter content and textures and whatnot. So for the task, notice when I'm going through the files, the textures located in the starter content folder have several large unnecessary files, such as textures and models. Locate the files in the starter content, pick the ones used by our team, then delete the rest. Second, check the files and make sure nothing important was deleted, as removing a specific texture could make it to where the window doesn't have glass, so on and so forth. We don't really use any of those. So it didn't make sense to have them, and they were taking up a ton of space. So I deleted those. That tasking was only a 30-minute, relatively quick tasking. Um, so change the stealth AI to start the combat map when they capture you instead of inflicting damage. As a player who fails stealth, I want to engage in combat instead of taking damage when attacked by AI. Completion criteria: find source node in the AI Viking BP. Edit the damage node to teleport player to combat map. Test and check to make sure the appropriate map opens once captured. So if I'm in an Ambrica Ruins map and I'm stealthing and I get captured, it automatically goes to the Ambrica combat map. This was a lot more difficult than I anticipated. Um, I was able to log 4 hours in this, but it was extremely tedious to get because there's multiple ways of doing this. You could use an enum, and then there's other ways too. But I ended up going with branching paths with within the map files. But it definitely took a lot of trial and error to get it just right, and bug fixes. So let's see. So that this build, so it is not in this build. I'm noticing right now that this build was made sooner than after that got completed because our teammate Andrew had to go to a wedding, so we had to wrap up the builds a little bit early to make sure we were all on the same build number. But that is implemented, and it does automatically teleport you straight into combat in all the maps. Um, for Illan Isles, Rurkall, and Ambercup Ruins. All right, so create enemy directional detection arrow on HUD. As player, I want to have directional arrow show me where detected enemies are. Create a HUD object with directional arrow. Create blueprint for directional arrow functionality. So this one, I've logged 2 hours into it so far out of 4 hours, and for some reason I cannot get this to complete for the life of me. And I think it might be an issue with this default HUD has the vitality and the map functionality. So I tried 2 different ways of creating this arrow icon to where it rotates using LERP, and it fills out appropriately when detecting the AI, or the AI is detecting you. Then cues the sound for the AI to follow. Then once they go away, it goes down once you lose detection. But the thing I wanted was this to rotate towards the enemy AI in their specific direction. I've tried several different tutorials and whatnot to figure out how to get it to work, but I just haven't figured out if it's the issue with having it the HUD based on here, or if it has to be a separate HUD item, and if the separate HUD items can stack. So I put that in the back burner for now. Okay. So fixing the crouch, I've only logged an hour out of the 3 hours that I've estimated for this. When the player leaves crouch and walking forward, they move at normal movement speed while still in the crouch transition. Expected result: when player releases crouch, they are expected to transition to normal walk. Actual result: the player moves at normal movement speed after the release of crouch while move forward while releasing the C key. Steps to replicate: hit C to crouch, walk forward, release the C key at the same time. Visual issue: functionality still exists for crouch. Check the animation sequence crouch for transition errors. Check the blend space and make sure it's set up correctly, and test. So I think I have it figured out after all this time what it actually is. I have not fully completed it yet, but I'm redoing the animations currently for all of the characters, and it's pretty much a visual bug. So once you have the crouch, kind of has like a duck walk, then you release it, and it's still kind of crouched, but it's just like you're doing a boot scoot, and you're just like zooming around. Then once you hit crouch again, it works normal. But if I hit crouch, walk, then stop, then release crouch, works fine. So I think it has something to do with the blend space, which I'm redoing all the animations, so it's kind of trivial at this point to continue working on it. Um, the poly mesh for the Vikings is a Unity asset, so it took us a long time to figure out. Well, for me personally, to figure out how to transition that into Unreal Engine since their bone structures are completely different, and it's been really tedious. Okay, so and then now that's when we get into this. So originally I was going to convert the Viking skeleton mesh or animations to the Viking skeleton. Um, I am probably like halfway done with this. I had to redo all of the animations for each one of the characters using the Poly Viking. Um, it's very simplistic movement, and I only have a few taskings left to do before I can compile them all into a fluid movement. But it's going to have one for the player and for the AI, and they're not necessarily going to be the same because the AI itself does not crouch. As a player, I wanted to take the available Unity Poly Viking skin and convert it to UE5. Open the base skeleton, rebuild the bone positions and match UE5 skeleton. Check animations and movements for errors and tests. This is extremely difficult, and I highly recommend whoever tries to underdo this tasking does not even bother wasting their time and just goes and uses Unreal assets and not Unity assets. It would save us a bunch of time. So out of the 4 hours, I'm already 8 hours into this or more. And then the follow-on task: replace AI with Viking skin, replace character with Viking skin. So these are being held up by Convert Unity Skeleton with UE5 Skeleton, which I have set as a high priority to get that finished. Um, these taskings should be a lot quicker than 4 hours. Once that final animation sequence is fully implemented, I could just pretty much take each one of the Viking skins and change their animation sequence to match the original base Viking skin, and then make a separate one for the player that has the crouch system in it, which will just have a simple crouch without the transition animation. So it'll just be you hit C to crouch and the character crouches down, and that'll avoid the complications that I have with the other crouch system. Okay, now for the play testers, which is me gonna read off this Excel spreadsheet here. Okay, so I had a little get together at my house, and this was actually fairly smooth. So I had them rate on a scale of 1 to 10 the AI difficulty, a scale of 1 to 10 for stealth mechanics, and then a list of pros and cons that from throughout the game outside of just the stuff I implemented as well. So we have Dugan de Guzman, David Makrovich, Rachel Grace, Jacob Gonzalez, McLeod Diaz, and then David R. So these guys mostly play like Call of Duty Black Ops and first person shooters, so it's a little different. I think like 3 of these guys actually play RPGs like Baldur's Gate and whatnot. So each one gave it a rating on a scale of 1 to 10, and then I took the averages and then put them down here for a conclusion for fixes. So, first pros and cons I have for the first player: confusing during story heavy parts. And then lost track of objectives, enjoyed the story, enjoyed turn based combat, got lost, needed better directions from quests, hated the AI during the stealth maps, keep getting caught, like the quest giver that rhymes, enjoyed trying to bug out all the AI Vikings, like the Viking lore, felt the game needed more depth. So I agree with all of these wholeheartedly. We need more direction, and I'm doing the best I can with the stealth direction. But after I add the next assets here, I'm going to make like a bush item that you could go inside that just acts as like a block, an invisible block that the AI player can't see you there, and it'll give the player a sense of a better sense of stealth to not get caught. So on the AI difficult scale 1 to 10, I had an average of 7. For my conclusion, the AI difficulty was generally appreciated, though some players found it a bit too challenging. And I agree, and I have since scaled this down to where I lowered their visual cone to, I'm pretty sure it's a 45-degree angle, and the distance is almost cut by 1/3. So I tweaked the scaling, making the Visibyte AI shorter and more narrow, easing AI aggressiveness to prevent players from being overwhelmed. Okay, so next, stealth mechanic was scale 1 to 10, and the average is 6. The stealth mechanic was rated moderately. Some players enjoyed it, and others found it too challenging to remain undetected and ran away from the AI. Increased the number of hiding spots, as I stated before, like bushes and fence lines and whatnot. Um, Redefine AI detection, improve feedback on detection status to show the player is at risk. So once I test around and maybe figure out or redo the directional arrow, I could at least give the player the feedback that there's an enemy nearby. Maybe have it to where it splits into like 2 different detections so that the player could better stealth. Being a top down map, it's a lot harder than third person. You don't really see the AI until they get really, really close. So, those are a couple things that I want to make sure I implement. Okay, so that concludes my demonstration, and thank you for your time.